Hello, hello, beautiful humans. You are here to think out loud with me. I'm Natalie Peterson, casting in from my little neck of the woods in northern Colorado to you in yours, wherever and whenever that might be. This little digital adventure of mine is my solution of turning years of internal chatter, wondering, silent suffering, and physical and mental close calls into enlightening and empowering conversations with others. I saw an Instagram post recently that read, "My therapist told me healing is so hard because it's a constant battle between your inner child who is scared and just wants safety, your inner teenager who is angry and just wants justice, and your current self who's tired and just wants peace." While I don't think it's necessarily a battle, I do get the point. It's work, this healing stuff. It's why a lot of us opt out and leave the past in the past, disassociate. As my mother would say, just get over it. The concepts of inner child and my sacred rebel self that came of age amidst my family's unraveling were both completely unfamiliar to me until I started the healing journey I've been on for the last several years. And even after learning that much of the work I needed to undertake was and still is in the finer details and experiences of who I was as a young human, I resisted invitations to go back, to return to places in my history that hurt, that stung if I even got mildly close. But I've done a damn good job of disassociating myself from over the last several decades. My inner child, my little Natalie, was adorable, quite frankly. Smart and quick, creative and curious, outspoken, and even then optimistic that life was awesome. She loved to write, she loved to act, she loved to sing and dance. My little Natalie was an explorer, and with her family, she climbed mountains and foraged for treasures in the woods and developed a relationship with the river behind her home. She was loyal and honest and stepped into the lead often. "Let's go! We can do this! Who's with me?" I'm not sure when it began, the doubt. I'm still not sure at what point I began to question my magic and whether or not I was worthy. I recall only bits and pieces of memories that didn't feel great. Intersections where I looked around and wondered, why are we going left instead of right? Or why there was such a heaviness to the room in which I was standing. But the doubt persists even 40 and more years later, and I continue to work on myself, finding my voice, releasing my fears and worries about what you think of me, or what she thought I could do better, or what he or they will say if I actually open up and say, and I continue to connect. I connect to hear stories and witness bravery and get inspired and uncover and unleash and unwind and tap into the unbelievable network of humans that call this planet home, who are journeying themselves and who are 1 and 2 and 3 steps ahead and willing to reach back for my hand. Though I've only just begun to get to know her, I imagine my guest today extending her hand. For Sally, life started normal. She was the youngest of 4, and life was good until it wasn't. After her mother's series of bad choices, Sally's family was split up, and that's when the cult swooped in, showing Sally love and giving her a purpose and passion in life. At the age of 6, she found herself a part of a doomsday cult who called themselves the Truth. Besides no holidays or birthdays and being separated from extended family, it also meant no sports, no art, no music, no friends outside of the cult, no school dances. At age 16, Sally was asked to leave. There were many reasons, but mostly it started when she would no longer conform. On top of growing up in a cult, Sally is also dyslexic, has ADHD, and is deaf in one ear. Imagine going through childhood like this and being called dumb. But she has survived and thrived and believes that anyone can. Sally has always had a dream to write, and today she's following that path of that dream. In addition to authoring The Truth is a Lie about a teenage girl's coming of age and awareness as a Jehovah's Witness, articles and musings on Medium, multiple beautiful writers' journals, and several children's books, Sally teaches and coaches writers and small business owners on how to reach success. With a servant's heart, she also helps people who perhaps don't have the same advantages as others. She is joining me from her home in Orlando, Florida, and I am thrilled to be opening up space to think out loud together. Sally, welcome. This is our second time together this week. How great is that? Say hey to everybody.
Hey, from Florida. It's great to be here. Um, I have six siblings. Did I tell you four?
It says 4. Well,
I
let's
am,
correct that.
I gotta
6.
fix that. I have four older siblings and two younger siblings. So there's seven of us
Wow.
all together. But I was the baby for a long time. There's a big spread in between me and my little sister. So
Aw.
yeah.
Wow. A big
And
family.
yeah, and as you're saying that, that brought up a whole other dynamic in my family because my older siblings have one father and they have their own family dynamic. Then there's me. I have my own father by myself. And then my two younger siblings had their own father and they were by themselves. So that was basically three families. And I am left out of the older and the younger.
Wow.
And that's rough.
Yeah, it is.
hmm
And you're the bridge between do the two sides know one another?
Yeah, they do. The problem therein lies that the Jehovah's Witness members don't really talk to the non-Jehovah's Witness ones. And so I was the bridge for a long time because I'm like the peacemaker. And it got to be too much for me mentally and emotionally. So I just said, you know what? I can't do that.
Yeah.
They're adults. They've all made their own choices. It was basically survive in my house and get out.
Wow.
And so but me being, like you said, I have the servant's heart. I'm the peacemaker. I just want, can we all just get along?
Yeah. And the pressure that you put on yourself
Yeah.
to make that happen. I I I recognize that.
Yeah.
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 What a challenge.
Yeah.
Well, you have an incredible story, and just well, before I say that, you and I have met in the rooms and networking groups of Her Nation,
hmm
which is a fantastic group. I've mentioned it to folks who are listening before. Just an incredible group of women, and have kind of flirted with the idea of working together. And I knew in talking to you, just absolutely enjoy your energy and I think I'll speak for myself, had a connection
Yeah.
that I really appreciate around just you're living your dream, but B, you are helping ignite stories in other people that
hmm
they may be completely terrified to tell.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to spend some time in your story, but also in the act of sharing your story and like what that magic is, because the lived experience that you bring to the table is pretty tremendous. So
hmm
um, can you give us can you give us a taste of young Sally and and the maybe abridged Reader's Digest version?
An abridged. Well, I was that kid with the little pigtails that would be running around on the playground, chasing the little boys, jump roping, having fun, just, joy. All my report cards said Sally's a joy.
Hmm.
I love having her in my class. She never causes any problems. So that was me, very happy-go-lucky, and I'm still that way. I have a very optimistic, naive outlook. But I've learned to balance that as I gotten older. But I have always navigated or been not navigated. What am I trying to say? Attracted magnetically to the underdogs or other people who I felt like needed a friend or needed something, whether it was just let's go skate together or let's go down the slide together or let's go ride bikes together, whatever it is. That being said, that was very limited for me because when I was about 6, my whole world turned, my whole world changed. And I didn't understand why all of a sudden birthdays were from the devil and celebrating Christmas was basically worshiping the devil. And I was then cut off from everybody else in school, right? Birthday parties. Well, she can't come. She's a Jehovah's Witness. Sitting outside during the class, class parties, I'd have to sit outside in the hallway. So I went from being this bubbly kid to just having joy and fun and just experiencing life, right, as kids do, to then wanting to be invisible because I didn't want anybody to know about this weirdness with my family. And not to mention that, I also had an extremely abusive family and from both my stepfather and my mother. And so then I became even more invisible because for a long time I was the youngest. I learned just be quiet. They'll forget you're here. So I kind of squelched myself up to be quiet and not noticed. And so it took a long time. That's my inner child. My inner child still feels unnoticed, still feels invisible. I still feel that I want my family, but I know that's not going to happen. So I just got to quiet that. My inner child still sometimes wants to just be silent. Can't help it. I'm working on it, obviously. But I think that's where the writing comes into play. Because I learned as a child I could write stories and make up things and make up scenarios, and I read a ton of books. I had to sneak a lot of them, but I read them. And that's what also gives me the ability to write for children, because I can really just get into that imaginative space. I can really create characters that come alive, because I just have imagined that. I imagine that's how I want to be. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Inner child work is, I wouldn't have, if you asked me 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I would have not been familiar with it. Maybe I'd heard about it tossed around, but I was one that was like, yeah, whatever.
It's been around for a while, and I forgot the gentleman who wrote the great book, and I used to watch some of his videos on YouTube, but he talked a lot about the inner child. I can't remember his name either. He's really famous too.
We'll figure it out, and we'll
it'll come to me in my memory, but I didn't even do anything with my inner child until probably 3 years ago when I relocated across the country during COVID. I cut off a relationship with my mom, who's still a Jehovah's Witness. I didn't cut her off. I just ceased, trying to get her to like me still. She's, like, can't you just love me? And then went into kind of a depression. And finally talking to a therapist, I said, I just assumed it's COVID. I moved cross country. I've had all this stuff. I just had a bad breakup with somebody who I thought was the one. And talking to her within 5 minutes, she said, you said this at the very beginning. Let's go back to that. And with her, we started talking about my childhood and the PTSD and the inner child work that I needed to do. And that made all the difference, just sitting with her and her giving me some exercises to go through. And I didn't realize that my little Sally I was still dragging her along, those thoughts and those reactions and those, like, everything, just bringing her along with me. It's like, I'm a grown-up.
And the concept that we can go back and with help and perhaps somebody sitting close, or in meditation, that we can go back and we can visit with our inner child and we can experience healing and resolution around wounds that like you're saying, we've drug along. Like,
Mhm.
you know, what's the saying about like heal your wounds so that you're not bleeding all over everybody, you know, without you even know, like the ahas that come from inner child work are just sometimes completely overwhelming. Like,
Oh yeah.
wow, I didn't realize, big, huge connection. That's who I am. That's
Yeah.
it. That's
Yeah.
it.
It was a aha. I had a couple of those. Oh, the guy's name is John Bradshaw.
There you
That's
go.
I remember. She actually took me through a couple of exercises and something popped up, a very vivid memory. And I remember thinking at that time, I was like 7 or 8 when this happened. My mom doesn't like me. It's exactly what I thought. And I had that pop in my head again. It's like, and that took me to thinking, my mom never took care of her inner child either. And so she was generationally passing it along. I'm not giving her a free ride because of the abuse in my home, but I am understanding that that was her, that's it, that's all she could give. And she's of the generation of we don't fix it. You
Yep.
know, it's you just ignore it, it's not there. So I understood that, and that was the one thing I understood right then and there, that she's never gonna love me the way that she needs to love me.
Right.
That was my aha. Okay,
Yeah.
I need to be a better person. I need to move forward.
And you touch on the generational, even her mother, and where she learned, you know, what wounds she was dealing from your grandmother. And the, you know, if we go back and back and back, if I look at
Yeah.
my own lineage, it breaks my heart,
She
right?
didn't have a mother. Her mother passed away when she was 3. So she was raised by her older sister. And so there's that. I just feel like she just
Yes.
didn't, she was, my grandfather was a very loving, kind man and did everything for his daughters, but he didn't replace mom. And sorry, moms and dads have, you know, it was a different time, and the moms
Mm-hmm.
did something different
Mm-hmm.
back then than they do
Mm-hmm.
now, and different place and time.
Yeah.
But so she didn't have that. And that was the one reason, this comes full circle. She's very bitter her whole life about God taking her mom. And that's why she joined the cult, because they promised her that she could see her mom again on Paradise Earth, even though she never really could because her mom was not a Jehovah's Witness. And that's the only people who are going to make it to Paradise on Earth. But that is, in a nutshell, how a cult works. Is they find something
Mm-hmm.
within you that's broken and hurting and aching, and that's what we're going to go for.
Mm-hmm.
It could be you want to find your soulmate, like the Twin Flames group. We're going to help you find your soulmate.
Mm-hmm.
You want to have, you want to have a lot of kids so that you can inherit, as much of this earth as possible. We're going to help you with that.
Mm-hmm.
You want a
Wow.
good job and you want to succeed in your business. We got you.
Very chameleon.
Mm-hmm. Very.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Have you read the book The Mother Wound?
No. Mm-mm.
Fantastic. Ripped me open within the first couple pages. Fair warning.
I don't know if I can. I am re-listening to my Jen Sincero badass book, and it's really helping me.
Shout out to that one too. Yeah.
She said something about being stuck in your old patterns because it's comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
and also how we talk bad to ourselves. And you kind of touched on that at the beginning about our inner chatter.
Mm-hmm.
She talked about look at yourself the way other people do. Look at yourself with the eyes of yourself as a child, as a grown-up. Look at yourself the way your kids look at you, or your spouse looks at you, or your best friend looks at you.
Mm-hmm.
Try and view yourself in that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A whole different lens.
It is. It is. And to be certain, there is a connection. What I relate to and what you're sharing is that the connection between mother and daughter is a different dynamic than mother and son, and a different dynamic
Mhm.
than son and father and daughter and father. Like, so respecting all
Definitely.
of that,
Yeah.
there it is. Though my mother was alive until just recently, she wasn't emotionally available to be my mom. It
Yeah.
was, there was not, there was too much hurt and her own silent suffering,
Mm-hmm.
which was generational,
Mm-hmm.
perfectionism and alcoholism and a whole bunch of isms that she
Mm-hmm.
carried around like a weight of obligation, that never allowed us to connect. And I grieved that long before she left this plant,
Mm-hmm.
in her form. I grieved it. She was not, and so the wounds that are left to be taken care of and to, to put salve on and to finally come to terms with and heal are significant, and we don't even have the first, there's we until we can dig in with bravery. I'm not saying it's easy. Holy crap, it's not easy. This is heavy, heavy shit. But with a trusted guide and with courage, we can start to really understand ourselves as beautiful humans,
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, and
Yeah.
opening up that potential of who we really are,
And that only works as if that's something that you really want to do.
that you
I
really
mean,
want to
if
do.
if you are if you're tired of hearing the silent chatter, if you're tired of drowning down the thoughts by taking a drink, if you're tired of, whatever it is you're doing to soothe that inner child and those voices, then you'll start
Mm-hmm,
changing. I don't know.
mm-hmm.
Some people, I guess they had idyllic childhoods and they're just rolling through life. I'm like, okay, we're at different personalities, different
Yeah,
perspectives. But I
yeah,
did hear an interesting thing about people, how they become narcissists. And I was like, that's really interesting.
sure.
I'm going to probably get it wrong, but they're the child who needs to be a perfectionist from the parents in some way, or who's ever taking care of them. And everything they do, no matter what they do, is, wow, I did a great job, because the kid is just tried to be so perfect, right?
Yeah.
And the world is all about them.
Mm-hmm,
And so their inner child learns very quickly that it's all about me, and I will do whatever I can to get that attention on
mm-hmm,
me,
mm-hmm,
no matter what. If it's hurting you, that doesn't matter. It's all about me.
mm-hmm,
So there's some people that learn that, and there's some that are born that way, obviously, but
mm-hmm.
they learn that. And they can unlearn it, but why would you want to unlearn being a narcissist, right?
Right.
You get everything you want.
Get all the attention and
You
none
get
of
all
the,
the attention. Yeah, that just blew me away. And I'm thinking of little kids. I remember, on the playground, like that little kid was a jerk, but you know what? He always got his way. He always got praised. He always got put at the front of the class. And I say he, because it was always a boy. He got put at the front of the class, you know,
mm-hmm,
got all the teachers' attention,
mm-hmm.
bullied everyone on the playground. Everybody did what he said. It's like, that was a narcissist in the making right there.
Yeah, for sure. Gosh, I think about my 15-year-old and as an only child, like the craziest thing that we've ever done and the worst thing that we've ever done. I have a teacher who says, uh, is have parents. That's what screws us all up. Right. We continue to pass it on down, right, in some form or another. And by no means will I have been a perfect mom, and gosh, tons of forgiveness I've sought,
But that's
and
good when you're asking for forgiveness and you're admitting that you made a mistake and you're
yeah,
letting your kid know, I love you. I did this wrong. I'm
yeah,
sorry. Can we fix it?
yeah,
That's a good parent.
yeah.
You can make as many mistakes, but if you acknowledge it and you know what you're doing, and you go back to the child and say, I really screwed that up.
Mm-hmm.
It's not making you weak. It's making your child stronger. It's
Yeah.
building up their inner child.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
When did you decide that your story needed to be shared?
Oh my gosh. So I'd been thinking about it for a while. But I really didn't talk a long time about growing up in the cult. I didn't talk about my abusive family. I shut that down for a long time until it made me actually so depressed I couldn't leave the house. And that's when I
Because you were,
started.
because you were,
I had
because you were what?
stifled everything. I didn't want to talk about it. And I thought I had left it in the past. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
if I just leave that there, it's back there. But at a certain point in my life, it was like, nope, we're still here. You can't do
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
And it made myself sick. And journaling became the therapy that one of my therapists had me starting to do. And then I remember that I used to like to write when I was a kid. So I started writing. And it took me a while. Somebody gave me some encouragement and said, you should be a writer. And I'm like, okay, I will. So, so I learned a lot about the writing world, and I started telling people, I grew up in a cult, and they were like, Jehovah's Witnesses aren't a cult. And then I found myself explaining what it was really about, because everybody just thinks it's Christmas, birthdays, you go knock on doors. And then they were like, oh, okay, yeah, you're right, that is a cult. And I go, well, I told you. But because I write for children, I wanted to tell this story in a way that they would read it. So I couldn't really write a biography because I'm not famous. So I decided to tell it as fiction, but I still didn't really know what to do with it. And I was at a writing conference one year, and it was me and a bunch of my friends and some agents, some literary agents, and we were talking about our terrible childhoods and things our mothers had done. I know it was a great group. We were all drunk. But the one agent was talking about her mom sending her to one of those camps, where they make the wilderness camps that are
Yes.
now like cults.
Yeah.
And then my friends were like, "Oh, Sally, tell her your story. Your story is so much better." Like we were comparing childhood horror stories. And I told her, and she said to me, "Why aren't you writing that? Why didn't you write that story?" And so from that day on, I decided to write it, and things kept happening in my life. So I had a high school boyfriend, which is what initially got me kicked out of the house. And I'm at a big conference in LA. And I'm listening to these writers talk about how they turned their stories into real life, or turned their real life stories into fiction.
Mm-hmm.
One, she found her brother after he committed suicide. Another one, her cousin was sent back to Iran and couldn't return because her parents had married her off. She was 17. So there was 3 in a row, and I couldn't take it anymore. It was gut-wrenching. So I walked out to the hallway, and here's this lady standing out there. She has the same last name as my boyfriend, which is a really long Italian name. And I asked her, "Do you know Greg?" And she's like, "Oh, that's my cousin." I was like, okay. So I said, sign number 3, writing the book. So I wrote it. And I wrote it as young adult fiction. And I took my life and just condensed it down into a 3-month period of where I was waking up and understanding what I had been taught was all a lie. The truth, they call themselves the truth. So the book is called The Truth is a Lie. I discovered all these secrets about hidden abuse and all the things they knew about my stepfather, that nobody did anything, just all the things. And how I had to live a double life for a while because I didn't believe, but for me to leave, I would lose my entire family and all of my friends. I would be shunned. And then where do I go? So it turned out okay in real life because my dad was stationed overseas and he came back. So I was able to go live with my dad after I got kicked out. But I had to spend a month, almost 2 months in the house with my family, and nobody talked to me. I saw my older sister in the store. She just walked right on by me. And all because I had a boyfriend and I refused to believe in Jehovah anymore. And I did go live with my dad, but I'd never been in a real, like, I never really knew my dad. I'd only seen him like once every 2 years for a week, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was an interesting time
Mm-hmm.
trying
Mm-hmm.
to get over that. That's where I started to leave the past behind right then and there. I said, okay,
Mm-hmm.
this is my new
Mm-hmm.
life. I can decide what color socks I'm going to wear. I can decide my clothes, my hair,
Makes total sense. Yep.
everything. I can go to school and I can talk to people now. So I just wrote about that little time period right then and there.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And I wrote it mostly for awareness. I wrote it for me, of course, but it's mostly for awareness. Because you never know who you're sitting next to anywhere and
Right.
what they're going through. I would be at class like this, just like me. Nobody knew that I was going home and being verbally abused. I could be hit. My stepfather was a sexual predator. You never knew what was going to happen. Then I had to put on, clothes and go knocking door to door and save people's lives. So it was just a few friends. Well, they weren't even friends because I wasn't allowed to have friends. It was a few people who were so kind to me who didn't really know me, but just were kind in school. They
Yeah.
would say hi to me. They would, help me like, oh, you need a book. Oh, you need this. Here, you can borrow mine. For me, that was like, they're talking to me. Now I'm not allowed to talk to them.
Yeah. You mentioned an art teacher. Was your art?
I did. I had Mr. Valentine, and he's actually in my book. I
Yeah.
loved art. I still love art. So art class was at that time was my escape, to just sit there and draw. And I didn't have conversations with him about my family because I couldn't do that. But
Mm-hmm.
I think he probably knew. I think it's, some adults have that intuition
Absolutely.
of something, there's something not right here.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt like he gave me the encouragement, when he was looking at my art and encouraged me to do some other things outside of the classroom, to do some other projects.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
I've thought when I retire, I'm gonna drive a school bus. I think that would just be, and the reason why I think that is because they'll probably be gone by the time I ever get around to having a chance to retire. But the thought that I must have heard this somewhere because I can't imagine that I made it up, that if these kiddos, I'm imagining, I read the first part of your book, I'm imagining kiddos in situations, and and we as children are vessels, and and to start a day that the separation between home and school, that as a vessel you're being poured into or you're being drained, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that, as I'm imagining these kiddos getting on the bus, and depending on where the home that they've come from, they are either they've been poured into or they've been drained, and
Mm-hmm.
being the first person that they see, as a transition between that home and school, which for so many is a safe place.
Yeah. For me, school was, I didn't want to leave. I'm like, I'm
Right.
staying here.
Right. And to be a safe face that
Mm-hmm.
says you're worthy, you are loved, get on this bus, let's go have a good day, right?
Right.
And just the beautiful role that teachers and bus drivers and administrators and staff and
Mm-hmm.
my son had a janitor who was a DJ on the side, and it's still Mr. Carlberg, we will never forget. He poured into, right,
Yeah.
into these kiddos, and
Yeah.
that somebody did that for you, that you remember that
Yeah.
distinctly.
Yeah. And I went to uh 3 grade schools, 2 junior highs, and 4 different high schools. No, 4 grade schools. So for me, it was always a different place every year.
Moving around on
Moving
purpose.
around. Yeah. My mom couldn't be in one, couldn't stay anywhere too long.
Mm-hmm.
It was always, close, but it was always a different school district.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, she's had that problem.
Yeah. And so putting pen to paper and releasing this story out into the world, did you feel released? Did you feel, what was the feeling that once you hit send on that final submission?
Yeah. Well, my first draft was very angry because my friends read it and they were like, "Ooh, this is a little angry. Is that really your mom?" And I go, "Yeah, I didn't tone her down." They're like, "Oh, okay." So I had to tone it down, obviously. So it actually was, the hardest part was when I was working with my literary agent and editing it, getting it ready to be sold. The first time, was actually the hardest part because I was living in California. I had just gotten divorced for the second time. My mom was living with me, and
Wow.
COVID just started, and that was rough because I was starting to have some PTSD and have some issues, and I actually had to have her leave and go live with my brother, and that was the hardest part.
Mm-hmm.
From the first initial writing was like very cathartic. It was just like, okay, let's get this out.
Mm-hmm.
And then fine tuning it and making it readable and creating, my characters, which were real life people, but I
Mm-hmm.
molded them,
Mm-hmm.
some people together. And it was actually that last process of the final run with my agent that did it.
Yeah.
So, but other than that, it was great
Yeah.
because making the characters that I got to create, and then having my stepfather, I don't want to give it away at the end, but I had justice at the end that I'd never
Mm-hmm.
got in real life. And
Mm-hmm.
so I created my own justice.
I love that. That's
I,
awesome.
yeah, which is one of the things you get to do if you write. Even
Yes.
if you write your
Yes.
memoir, you can still, it's justice because you're putting it out there
Mm-hmm.
and you're saying the things that
Mm-hmm.
need to be said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so not only have you taken this story and put it into written form, but you've also turned it into your story into a way of connecting with others, and helping others, young people, and adults who perhaps are facing, a similar situation, or they're in the middle. I mean, tell me how you help others now with your story.
It's twofold. So I do help some people. I've had a lot of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses find me on TikTok, which I am over there, but that's mostly my ex-Jehovah's Witness world. And they bought my book and they've used that to give to other people to understand, or they've told me that they want to start writing their story and that helped them. And so I've been able to mentor them a little bit. But I really work with um, mission driven and purpose driven business owners, people who have had something happen in their
Mm-hmm.
previous life. Maybe their inner child was destroyed. I don't know. And then they are using what they have learned and they're writing their, what I like to call, and I didn't coin this phrase, but they're writing their survival guide for someone else to read using their methods, whatever it is that they used. It's usually around their business. I've had financial people who have had terrible, horrendous things happen to them as a child that influenced them to become financial planners. And they tell their story, and their financial planning tactics have to do with what they learned from their
Mm-hmm.
childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the people they help. now. So I think we all use the things that have happened to us to get to where we are.
Yep.
And so a lot of people like to put that into their work, and
Yep.
they like to give back. And those are what make the best books if you're doing nonfiction, because that helps you connect with your reader and they can start changing. They're looking to you because you are now their expert. And I'm of the firm belief that you have a lot of things happen to you. You're a survivor. I'm still surviving. I'm thriving. But to take that, what you learned, and give it back in some way. There's something for somebody. You never know who's going to pick it up and read.
There's a saying that somewhere someone's wound is in the shape of your words.
Mm-hmm. It's true. So the wounds are, you were saying your words are in the shape of, how did you word that?
Somewhere someone's wound is in the shape of your words.
So that could be I could take that two ways. You could wound someone with your words. My mom was verbally and emotionally abusive. Those words that she said to me wounded me. Those hurt my inner child. Those hurt me as an adult. But then again, somebody else can come along with the right words and uplifting and kind and fill that wound where those wrong words were said.
Mm-hmm.
That saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me, that is not true. Mm-hmm. I think words hurt more than the sticks and stones because it's internal and you don't share it. Mm-hmm. You keep it inside and you just keep going over it and over and over it, and it shapes you. But yeah, I take that two ways.
I hadn't thought of that. That's a very good point.
That was my first thing. She said, words. Oh yeah. Words have wounded me.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah. Wow. And just recognize that what comes out of our mouths, what is the five agreements, like being impeccable with your words and really taking inventory of where you're at before. I mean, we all fly off the cuff, and I like to say I try and achieve congruence where my insides match my outsides, right? That's been a mission of mine, right? That's not to say that, as I'm driving down the street and I get cut off and, I say, I'm going to run you off the road, and I don't actually right?
I was going to say that. I swear like a truck driver when I'm driving.
Right.
I'm like this. Right? Can't believe you did that.
Yeah. I'm not really gonna, when I roll up beside you at the stoplight,
I might just go, hey.
Hope you get where you're going quickly, right?
Yeah.
But I appreciate the flip side of that, is that words are critical. And I think too, just back to, sharing and writing a story and putting pen to paper and actually journaling and the processing and the, mm-hmm. In any of my own self-care exercises, I'm a freak of a note taker. I'm constantly taking, if I don't have a pen and a piece of paper next to me, I may be just doodling, but that's how I ingest it. That's how I integrate. That's how I remember. I may never go back to that page ever. I mean, there are piles of notebooks, right? But the process of it. And so you have a special knack as a writer's coach, and that's what you have found yourself doing, taking on clients and helping them write their, whether it's fiction or a memoir or what have you, a children's. Mm-hmm. So tell me what you're working on. I want folks to be able, that are listening, that find your energy interesting, that they can reach out. I'd love to just give a few plugs around, where to find you and what you do and the magic you bring to the world, as a writing coach.
Well, I have a magic wand. No.
Woo!
Woo! Well, when I work with my clients, it's a pretty fast process. And some people, like, they get a little scared, but when I start talking to them and explaining to them, and they start trusting me and understanding I know what I'm doing, it's not so bad. So my process is actually a 30, 60, or a 90-day process. Because I believe in writing in a season, which is when you're when you're in the creative world, even if you're writing nonfiction, you're in a space mentally and emotionally, physically, everything, right? And you get that draft written in this time frame, you stay in that space. But if you start to write it and put it down and then come back to it 3 years later, or 4 years later, or a month later, you're in a completely different mindset. And so I know it sounds scary to write something that fast, but when you have somebody like me with the experience who's helping you through the process and really helping you discover, what your message is, helping you through the hurdles, it starts to flow. So the client I'm working with right now, he's doing a memoir, and he was really nervous about telling his story. And I gave him a couple of insights that really helped him. And I said, you're an adult trying to tell your story as a child. So you need to be a child telling your story. He's like, oh, I never thought of that. I said, I want you to get down in your brain at that level, how tall you were when you were, he was a scene where he was following his grandma to the church. I want you to get, like, how tall were you in the church? What did you see? What did you smell? And he was finally able to, like, get into that space and write it. And he goes, I brought up a lot of memories. So I help people with a different viewpoint, just think outside the box. But I'm there holding your hand. I've had people text me, I can't do this, I'm in a bad place. And I go, okay, skip that chapter, to the next one. Replace your name with somebody else's name. It's okay. So that's what I do. I help them get their books written in that time. And then I help them when we're done, whatever they need after that, however they're going to publish it. I help them.
Does everybody write to publish? Does everybody come to you with the intention of this has got to be published?
Yes. Some people come to me, I just want to put this on Amazon, and then they go away with a letter to a literary agent who likes what they wrote and wants their book. Or they go to a hybrid publisher who's going to publish them and get them more market space. Or I've had some who I just want this for my family. I just want this for my grandkids. That's kind of, those people more use my ghostwriter. But for the most part, they want their book out there because they want to use it for themselves, for their business. They want to use it for speaking. They want to use it for their podcasts. They want to use it for whatever to get their message through. Yeah.
So in order to reach you, we've got Sally Lotz, LOTZ as in zebra.com as your website. And it's a beautiful website that has a lot of information. And then you're very active on LinkedIn and Instagram. And you have even been offering overview classes either on your own or with a partner. And just, I find you incredibly accessible. And
I am.
Yeah.
I'm doing Eventbrite. I'm doing some classes on Eventbrite, which are all free. And I'll be doing, usually they're on Mondays, but I have some coming up during the week, like at lunchtime. I'm on the Eastern time zone. But they're on my website, and I plastered them all over my social media. So it's easy to find me.
Yeah. That was where I saw you earlier this week. I enjoyed it. I'm glad that I participated. And then just any last, if somebody's thinking about their story, Um, and they're wondering if, what do you
Mhm.
say to people that are teetering around if they should write their story?
A lot of people who I say, if you've had the idea, then you need to write it because that you have the idea. Most people don't walk around thinking, I need to write this. So you need to write it. And if you're not sure how, which is how a lot of people come to me, is I have that free 30 minutes
Mm-hmm.
of a strategy session, and I can give you guidance, help you figure out how to tell your story. There's more than one way, and you don't know what you don't know. So I ask the questions, and I think I ask you a couple of hard ones.
Yep. Yep, for sure.
So yeah, it's just talk. If you talk to me,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah. Well, I think that you have you have survived, and you are surviving and thriving. And as I said, the lived experience that you bring, bringing light to a story, and creating, just even in share. I mean, I can't even, the tremendous number of times that you've shared your story across my mind.
Mhm.
Do you tire from sharing your story? Is there
No,
always something healing about the?
I don't get tired of telling it because I know every time I tell it, it gives somebody an awareness
Mm-hmm.
of several things of the cult.
Mm-hmm.
It also gives them a glimmer of hope for whatever they're going through, and that they can get through it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it, or it gives them the courage to say, you know what, she wrote her story, I can do that.
Yeah.
So it doesn't, I don't get tired of that.
Yeah.
I get tired of talking about my dating life, but not not that.
I will sprinkle mine out. I have a magic wand to sprinkle dust
Thank you. Thank
on
you.
Sally's dating life. Much, much, much love, and ding, ding, ding. Well, I appreciate you sharing space with me, and being so giving of your magic, and your story, and just, yeah, being honest and open, and doing the good work that it takes to make change. You're change making. It's your own niche of change making. Don't stop. Don't stop thriving, Sally.
That's what I'm trying. It gets tiring. Sometimes my shield gets a little tarnished, and
Yeah.
my little sword, but I keep going.
Call me if you ever need a boost. I will.
Okay.
I will cheer you on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate you having me on. I really, this was good.
Good. Well, thank you. And thank you, folks, for thinking out loud with me today, and with today's guest, Sally Lotz. Given how many choices you have to spend your time, I am honored that you're listening in. Until we visit again, go live with love and live with intention. And please, 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 whatever you do, don't let anyone fuck with your flow. Big hugs, big love. Bye-bye, friends.